of July fireworks had been banned at Mount Rushmore for 10 years until President Trump visited last year. Plus, he had a display of our military might from the local Army and Air National Guard, who joined the U.S. Air Force in conducting exciting flyovers. To commemorate the occasion,
through Jesus Christ.
Also available as a 360-degree spray.
Some response.
.com/TV and get 2 months free.
Hi, I'm Jane King, and thank you for watching. This show is all about public, private, and blockchain companies. We bring you the innovators behind the companies making the headlines in that space. Some are sponsored, some are invited. All are curated and focused on telling you, the viewers, their story. Here we go. Cannabis stocks have been among the best performers this year, and the thinking is maybe it's time for federal legalization of cannabis. So with me, two experts here to talk about this. We've got Keith Stauffer, the CFO of TerraSend, and also Matt Carnes, the founder of Greenwave Advisors, to talk about this industry. It's really been a hot industry so far this year. Keith, let's start with you. So we've got a new administration in the White House, one that is at least perceived to be friendlier to cannabis regulation, Democrat House now as well. So, I mean, what do you think this might mean for the cannabis industry?
Hi, Jane. Thanks for having me. First of all, it's tough to kind of take bets on where the government's going to head, but I think if I were just to say what would be best for a company like TerraSend or other multi-state operators in the U.S. in the industry, I think the first changes would be centered around banking reform and tax reform, 280E tax. And then the third would be some ability to uplist to U.S. exchanges. So if I just take the first couple first and take banking reform and tax reform and just apply it to the TerraSend example, just the hard cash savings from those two types of changes could equate to north of $1 billion of enterprise value increase in a company like ours.
So, Matt, I mean, we saw in November, 4 or 5 states pass varying legalizations of marijuana. It was South Dakota and Arizona, and I'm trying to remember all of them. There were several. Do you think that this will lead to more growth, and what is the size of the industry and the expected growth?
Sure. Well, thank you also for having us this morning. I would say that, yes, more states legalizing will contribute to the growth. It takes probably about a year or so, a year to 18 months for a new market to get implemented if there was no existing market. So in the case of this past election, we had Arizona and New Jersey, two existing medical markets that are robust, that are, Arizona actually has already started selling recreational use. So there'll be a quicker ramp up in sales and revenues, going into this year and next. The size of the market last year, estimates are estimate about $20 billion for 2020, and going into this year, roughly about 25 billion. Most of that growth, again, is other states that have implemented a couple of years ago are starting to ramp up, and as well as the new states that have come online. So most of the growth is coming from new states, and then those existing states, we're starting to see some real organic growth year over year. And so, long term, my crystal ball only goes out maybe 2 years. I think it's really hard to handicap year by year at this point because we're very close to the end zone. So I would just say, I look at the market now just after going to 2022, out to about, I would say the market at maturity is about $70 to $80 billion. And that doesn't even include the CBD market. This is just the retail sales for the THC products by and large.
Now, Keith, you talked a little bit about, listing on some of the major exchanges, ETFs. What are all the barriers for this industry? And then also, what are the different ways that investors can play in the cannabis space, so to speak?
Yeah, maybe a couple elements there. So there are new ETFs. For example, there's an ETF MSOS, which is multi-state operator. That's where that comes from. It's a New York Stock Exchange traded ETF. So that's a good way to play the sector, and it's on a major exchange. Like I mentioned earlier, the barrier is just that companies like ours and other leading multi-state operators trade on Canadian exchanges. And so once the laws are rewritten and providing a pathway to uplist to NASDAQ or NYSE, then definitely that the barriers come down, the capital flows into these companies more readily, and that provides more investment to continue to expand the sector and continue to expand the operations of these companies.
Now, do you think it will have to be federally legal before the banking happens and the listing happens? That's the next thing that needs to happen for this industry, would you say?
There has to be some, not full federal legality, but there has to be some type of safe harbor language that's developed in these acts that will enable the exchanges to conclude that they can list these companies.
Okay. Now, there's also a social justice element to this as well. I saw Jay-Z, I believe, was starting like a venture fund for minority-owned cannabis companies. Is that also something that will impact this industry as it grows?
Definitely. I would say this industry is leading in terms of some of the efforts with social justice, whether it be just employment with such a growing industry and in these hard times more broadly, this industry is hiring more and more people. TerrAscend, for example, we're hiring a lot of people, a diverse workforce in Pennsylvania and New Jersey are two of our beachhead states. And maybe a second great example is just last week, Jason Wild, full disclaimer, he's our chairman, but Jason Wild partnered with Chris Webber, the former NBA All-Star, and announced a partnership to start a fund, I believe it was $200 million fund, focused on minority-owned businesses in the cannabis sector, and not only putting their money behind it, but putting their time behind it to work with these minority-owned businesses to help them develop and expand their businesses. So I think those are two great examples of how the industry's leading some of the efforts in social justice.
Yeah. Okay. Now, Matt, how should potential investors or people who are in this industry how should they watch it? How should they invest in it? Is it too late? We've seen a big run up in cannabis stocks already this year. And then what should they look for when looking for cannabis companies?
Well, first of all, I would say it's not too late. It just really depends on your time horizon. If you think of it in terms of just where we are in the industry's growth, if we are at 20 billion last year and it's expected to go to 80 billion plus, we're like maybe even not even a quarter way there. So as much as these stocks have run, I really don't think they're valued to maturity at this point. So there's a long way to go. Now, can I predict the bottom and now get in? No, I mean, obviously there's volatility, but if you're in for the longer term, you really can't go wrong in many of these multi-state operators that have started to demonstrate real operational efficiencies and improvement. And what I would also say is once prohibition ends, as I was saying earlier, there is a cost of prohibition, right? There's a high tax rate, there's compliance costs. Keith would know better than I, really all the nuts and bolts that are behind everything. But really, once prohibition ends, and folks like TerraSend, companies like that, and some of these other MSOs that are demonstrating free cash flow generation, once you get rid of all these prohibition costs, the free cash flow profile of these companies really dramatically will accelerate, in my opinion. So I think there's tremendous opportunity. And what I would look for is solid management teams. I mean, we've seen instances in the past, maybe some companies have gone public too early, didn't have the background, the experience, etc. I think most of that's behind us. And right now it's a very bright light going into the future for the sector.
Well, thank you so much, Keith and Matt, for joining us and explaining I know a lot of people are really interested in this industry. So thank you so much.
Thank you.
Global Cannabis Applications Corp has a new technology-based platform that can aggregate data about cannabis and help us learn more about what it can be used for, and it's just good for the whole industry. So with me is the CEO of the company, Brad Moore. Brad, welcome.
Thanks, Jane. Thanks for having me.
So let's start with this platform you've got. Efixi, am I saying it right?
Yeah, Efixi.
Okay. Explain the platform, what it does, and how can we benefit from it?
Sure. So Efixi is there are 5 interlocking technology. Efixi is like a takeoff of the word efficacy. Our whole focus is on patient efficacy. We know that growers in the past have been able to produce a lot of products in the ground. But if you're going to say something's medical, there's 2 things that have to happen. The product has to be consistently produced, and then it has to be measured, right? And so the measurement is the efficacy part. So by using a combination of mobile technologies, blockchain, algorithms that we've developed with some of the leading algorithmic scientists in Israel, we've been able to put together what we call not a seed to sale solution, but a seed to sale to seed. So that means a full cycle of data all the way for every grown gram. So we start by measuring it with our partners from Purity IQ. Then for every batch that's going from that, we compare that batch to make sure it's consistent. We track it all the way through the life cycle, the development, simple seed to sale stuff. And then we attach consumer efficacy to it, and we feed it all the way back and run it through algorithms to determine what is the best potential product for a consumer.
Now, is this the first end-to-end cannabis data solution?
Well, I hope so, because I've got a patent pending on it. So we'll cross our fingers and find out about that. But yeah, it's from what we've seen. Look, we've been in this game since 2017, right? And we spent, 2018, I must have spent like 7 months in Israel looking at it. And it's besides great food and the Mediterranean, they're huge leaders in technology. And when you look at the Israeli system, what you're going to actually see is they have 20 years. Every growers and cultivators are all attached to R&D facilities. So it's about the consumer, and that's critical. And, I've been in this industry around enough, and we've made enough investments to see how much growers have actually really kind of controlled the sway. And you've seen that in Canada. So when we went to legalization, we just said, okay, it's like the end of prohibition. Now you can go buy it in the liquor store. They're a Canadian version. But really, what we were talking about before, if you took this product, what's the difference? What defines this product as medical and or recreational. And that's what we're actually focused on. And so by just using our technology and putting a simple QR code system on the top where a consumer can take their phone and scan it and see everything there is to do with it and what's going to work best, that's hugely innovative.
Well, it's a decentralization trend that we've seen in other industries as well. So now what would you say your sales would be in 2021?
So we've got targeted, we're going to, what we call it is grams under contract. We say that because, you know, one grower might do it for one line, one grower might do it for all their products. So we're targeting 32 million grams under contract, and we make on average 38 cents between the SaaS licensing and the data sales that come from that, the manipulation of the data output, which is, I think, 2-3 press releases back, we announced that this 38 cents. So, you know, we're looking roughly at 20 times or 32 times 38 cents, right? That's why I've got a CFO. He's great at that. I think about that hard multiplication.
Okay.
The guy with the MBA doesn't know how to do, so we'll leave it at that. And then for 2022, we'll have an aggregate between those 2 years of 122 million grams. So first year, 32 million grams under contract with average revenue of 38 cents per gram between data sales and SaaS licensing. I can tell you right now in the pipeline, we actually have a pipeline full of potential opportunities that we're working of 195 million grams. So our target is 32 million grams, and our pipeline line right now is 195 million grams with deals at varying stages. So we're off to a pretty good start for 2021.
Okay. Well, and it's definitely something that's needed is, you know, cannabis grows. I think, you know, we saw, I think 6 states approve various levels of legality of cannabis in November in the U.S. So, you know, I expect that to continue and there'll be more data needed.
100%. And we really want to go into the message, like, you know, the EU came out and they said back in the day in 2018 or early 2019, they said, you know, we need to get this off Schedule 1. He goes, but we need more information. And as you know, information comes from data. Data comes from technology. So that's what our focus is, right? We've got the platform, we've got the tools fully commercialized. And like I said, it's we say to growers, you know, come to us or we're coming to you, right? And we're bringing the customers along. You know, your customers at the end of the day, when there's that QR code that's going to be on top, you know, they're going to demand this.
Okay. Well, I mean, it makes sense. So thank you so much, Brad, for coming in. Best of luck, and join us again later this year and get an update.
Thank you so much for having me.
WinstonGold is a Montana-based gold mine and gold business, and recently they have produced some gold and silver concentrates out of this mine. So with me is CEO Murray Nye and also the executive chairman Joe Caraba. And so I guess Murray, do you want to start with me and kind of tell me the news here, what you found and what this means?
Well, yeah, okay, Jane. I'll let Joe elaborate on it because he's got a lot of experience in the process, part of the business for sure. You know, it was always our intention to put this mine into production. While we were doing that, we produced what we call development ore. The development ore, we stockpiled at the mill. It's a lower grade material. We used it to bed the mill in, if you like, or test it. And we also used it for the pad to put the ore on. So we started the mill up in late December. Then we were able to run it in January for 95 consecutive hours. And in the process, we produced some what they refer to as, well, the mill will produce 2 things. It'll produce a gravity concentrate, if you like, and a float concentrate. And maybe, Joe, I'll let you elaborate on what that is.
Go ahead, Joe.
Sure, be glad to. So the the larger gold particles that we have, once we grind through a ball mill that goes with it, we take them through a hydraulic classifier, a piece of machinery called a Nielsen classifier. And in that, the larger particles drop out, if you will. So we take that down to 6 to 8% of the total gold that we'll see coming out, and we gather that up into a separate set of containers that we will then run through a Whiffley table, if you will, to create a super con that we can sell quite easily here in the United States without going through the refining and smelting processes that we will probably send the flotation cons through. After the gravity is separated, the larger particles, the fine particles, then go through a series of flotation cells. We add chemicals to them and froth it with air. And from there, we gather those up into super sacks. We take it through a filter press to take the water out. And it's got a combination of gold, silver, and probably another 20 or 30 metal elements that you would see typically in a sulfide deposit like this. And from there, as soon as we get up to a container load that is 20 tons or 21 ton super sacks, we can start shipping those to a designated refinery.
Okay, so this, I don't know much about mining. I would love to come visit your mine someday, but this sounds successful. Sounds like it's been a good thing. Can you kind of explain what this means for your business?
Yeah, I think, I mean, if you think about it, you know, with there's many junior companies that are out there most involved in long range projects, and you see results all the time on drill results that they're doing as they ramp up. We've successfully taken this from when we started the adit to go into the veins, and about 2 years ago we've gone from the drill bit to producing gold, and I don't think you'll find many junior mining companies in that category where they actually get it to production. Like normally they're sold to larger companies, and then they take it on to the final steps. So I think it separates us as well from and de-risk the project quite significantly from the drill bit, if you will, and core analysis and all of the engineering studies you have to go through to now becoming a producing mine. We're quite proud of that. We think it really puts us in a very select category of miners.
So Murray, anything to add to that? I mean, what does this mean going forward?
Well, yeah, Jane, well, it's been our intention right from the get-go to hopefully put this into production in the next 4 to 5 months. What that does for us, that ships it to that mill. We can then ship it to the mill. Just another thing about the mill is that it was a big feather in our cap to lease that mill, because that alone is probably a 3-year permitting process and capital expenditure of anywhere from $7 to $10 million at least. So we've kind of shortcut that process by getting this mill. I think a big feather in our cap. And now we can mine the material from underground, ship it to the mill. It's only 36 miles away on a very, very flat highway on a very good road, and process that material and actually produce gold and silver. So I think that was our intent right from the get-go. We hope to do that.
Okay, Murray, any final thoughts?
I guess, Jane, I'd really like to thank people for taking an interest in what we're doing. I think our timing is really good. I think the gold and precious metal business, I think, has got a lot of upside from here. What's going on in the world right now with all the turmoil, I think there's a lot of problems facing the world. I mean, the way all the countries are printing currencies. I think it bodes well for gold. I think we're in the right business. I think our timing is couldn't be better to be entering into this phase of development when things are the way they are. Because as Joe's always indicated to me with his experience with Newmont, from drill bit to actual production is about a 10-year time horizon. So I think our timing couldn't be any better. I think with what's happening in the world, I think this business is a very good business to be in right now.
You know, we've talked before about the macroeconomic situation. I mean, it's not just kind of the uncertainty and the turmoil, but also, as you mentioned, all the money printing and what that means for inflation and as people look for different assets other than currency. So, I mean, could be very interesting few years ahead for gold and silver as well.
We think so.
Yeah. Okay. Well, thank you very much. Best of luck and congratulations. And look forward to an update soon.
Thanks very much, Jane.
Thank you. Bosagora is focused on building an open, decentralized blockchain that ensures transparency. So with me is the Chief Marketing Officer of Bosagora, Johan Lee. Great to have you here from Seoul, South Korea. So it's wonderful.
Hey, nice to meet you. Nice to meet you, Jane. And I'm very glad to be here.
So can you tell me just a background of Bosagora, introduce yourself and what the company does?
Sure. I'm Johan, the Director of Marketing and Business Development at Bosagora project. And Bosagora is a public blockchain platform that aims to make a better world. We are kind of creating a whole new financial environment, financial environment that is secure and convenient. We plan to help majority of cryptocurrency traders around the world to make higher profits by investing in traditional financial world, such as stocks or real estate markets. Thank you for having me here, and I'm very pleased to share my story.
Yeah, no, it's great. It's great to hear about the company. So, and you explained that you want to create a new financial environment. So you go into a little more detail about that.
Sure. We are literally making new financial environment, a unique financial ecosystem no one has ever experienced before. We named this TFI, True Finance. First of all, we offer a very special staking reward rate system. The way to participate is almost the same as conventional blockchain platforms, but the compensation rate is not the same at all. We offer an annual rate of 37%, and it is the minimum rate. Not only that, TFI has a unique structure that allows users to earn additional fixed income. Bosagora has its own currency called BOA. By lending the staked BOA coins as collateral, we generate additional profits from the traditional economy. It's kind of one source finance, but used in multiple ways.
Wow. Okay. So all this that you're telling me is showing me how much the world is going to be changing when it comes to the financial system. It's just incredible. What are your plans for the future, both, let's say, near term and medium term?
Yeah. Well, in the first half of this year, before our CoinNet will be launched and the actual staking service will begin, we plan to launch 2 programs. The first one, which was worth about 2 million USD, opened last week, and we think it was kind of great successful launch. You can check the result in our website t-fi.io. And from the later half of this year, after the CoinNet launch, the confirmation reward through node operation will be officially released. By early next year, Chainlink Oracle will be linked to our trust contract to create the first DeFi to generate revenue from the traditional economy.
Okay. Wow. Very interesting, Johan. Thank you for coming. And let's do an update as you get through this year and you start to introduce the coin and have more projects on hand.
Yeah, sure, I do.
Great. Thank you so much.
It's our America. We conquered it. We built it. Great values like honesty and fairness. Great courage. A great nation needs a free press. Newsmax is it. 30 million Americans regularly go to Newsmax when they really need to know. They watch Newsmax TV at home. On the free Newsmax app, they go to Newsmax.com. Start today. Newsmax is real news for real people.
Imagine being able to do whatever you want to do, whenever you want to do it. Sandals, more quality inclusions than any other resorts on the planet. Save up to 65%. Call 1-800-SANDALS.
Time for new reading glasses? Go to readers.com. Choose from hundreds of styles and colors for under $20. And now, enter this exclusive TV coupon code at checkout to save up to 40%. That's readers.com.
I don't want to look like this anymore.
What is happening to my body?
Why can't I lose weight?
You may be suffering from insulin resistance.